Alright, so for this week's lesson, I wanted to pull a unit out of a new course that I just finished. That course is live at activemelody.com. It's called Essential Theory. And it's all of the basic information, the theory information you need to know as a musician. And it starts the major scale. We start with the notes on the fretboard, then we get into the major scale. We talk about how chords are built. And it's just a linear program so that we can all be on the same page in terms of knowledge and terminology and some of these things. So if you're interested in that, you can go to activemelody.com and check that out. So this is going to be one unit from that. And this unit is about chord extensions. This is one of those topics that mystifies a lot of people. When you look at a chord chart and you see a chord that says A6 or minor 7 flat 5, you know, some of these cryptic, they look like almost like hieroglyphs. Like, what does this stuff mean? What do these numbers mean? Well, in this unit that we're going to go through here, you're going to understand what they mean and how those chords are constructed, and find out that it's really just the major scale. And it's not that difficult to do. And you can actually look at a chord number like that and work it out yourself. And so you're going to understand how to do that by the end of this video. So just remember, this is one unit out of a bigger course, which is an Essential Theory course. All right, let's take a look. All right, so now let's talk about the big guy, the big elephant in the room, and that is chord extensions. Now, chord extensions, really, if I were to just give you a very simple summary of it, it's just chords that go beyond 4 notes. So right now, up to this point, we've talked about a triad, which is a 3-note chord. We've talked about the major 7 chord or the dominant 7 chord, which have 4, the 1, 3, 5, and 7. With the dominant 7, remember, you flat the 7. But when we get into extensions, we're going beyond that. So we're going up to a 9, an 11, and a 13. It doesn't go beyond 13, so there's 3 extra steps you can add. So you can add up to 7 notes in a chord, believe it or not. If you're playing a 13 chord in a proper way, you're playing all 7 notes. Now, I'll show you that you don't actually have to play all 7 notes because we've only got so many fingers and so many strings to work with. But that's what a chord extension is. It's going beyond the 4-note chord. And so back to our rule of thumb when it comes to the major 7. Remember, we're talking about a major 7 chord, how that's different than a plain old 7 chord. Remember, a major 7 chord is a 1, 3, 5, 7. So if I was playing a C major 7, for example, I play the C major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I play the 1, 3, 5, and 7. And it would sound like this. That's a C major 7, kind of jazzy, remember? If I were playing the C7, or also known as the C dominant 7, I'd be playing the 1, 3, 5, and the flatted 7. So it gives you a much harder sound. It's not quite as dreamy. It sounds more bluesy that way. So one is jazzy, one is bluesy. Well, we're going to use that same principle when it comes to these extensions. So if I were to say play a C9 chord, for example, now notice I didn't say C major 9. I just said C9. It's the same kind of rule as if I had said play a C7. Like where we've got that dominant 7. Remember, we got the flat 7 in there. So if I said play a C9 chord, you'd play your 1, your 3, your 5, your flat 7, and then your 9. Now some of you are going, what is the 9? Well, we just keep counting up the major scale. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Notice I just kept going up the major scale. Instead of stopping at 7, I kept going. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That note is what I add to my chord, my C dominant 7 chord, to color it as a C9 chord. So hopefully some light bulbs just went off for some of you and you go, oh, that's what a C9 chord is. That's where those numbers come from. They're just the major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The big thing is knowing that you have to have that dominant 7. If I didn't differentiate it, if I didn't say C major 9, I just said C9, you have that flatted 7 in there. And that's a hard point to try and explain. I had a hard time getting my head around that. Like, with the 7, what are we doing with the 7? Is it flatted? Is it not? If I said play a C major 9 chord, then it is not flatted. You'd play a 1, a 3, a 5, a 7, not flatted, with the 9. Versus a C9, which is 1, 3, 5, flat 7, 9. Right? It sounds like this. right? So that's the general rule of thumb as to what you do with that seventh interval when you're playing these extensions. So that's how you play a 9 chord, a C major 9 chord, and a plain old C9 chord. So when we're talking about playing an 11 chord, for example, you're technically speaking, you're playing all of those notes that we've added along the way. And notice that you're skipping a space. If we look at the major scale, when we're doing this, we have the 1, the 3, the 5, the 7, 9, 11. We just keep skipping every other note in the major scale. So it makes it sort of easy to see when you sort of lay out the major scale in front of you. That's why this is a lot easier to demonstrate on a piano than it is on guitar. But it's the same principle. No matter what instrument you're playing, the same rules apply here. So if I were playing a C11 chord then, for example, now notice I didn't say C major 11, I just said C11. That means we flat the 7, right? So you play your 1, 3, 5, flat 7, your 9, because that's in there too, and then up to your 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? And the same would be true for the 13 chord. You would then add in the 11, the 9, the flatted 7, all the way back to the 1. So you have all these extra notes. So it gets up to 7 notes in the chord. Now here's the reality check. We can't play all of those notes. That's just impossible on the guitar. We don't have enough fingers to do that. So it's okay to start throwing notes out the door. It's okay. So if I was playing a 13 chord, for example, I'd want to make sure I have that 13 in there. So really what I try to do is I try and play like just a C7 chord, but add in the 13th. So to find the 13th, you'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. You just keep walking up the major scale until you find it. And if you don't know how to finger the major scale, use the formula, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And you can walk up even on a single string and find it. You're going to find it by ear that way, but that's okay. You're still finding the notes that you're looking for. So this note, when added to the C7, gives me a C13. And that's that kind of, actually the way you play it, sounds like that. That's a C13. But when I look at that, I look at it and go, wait a minute, why would I twist my fingers like this? Why wouldn't I just play it like this? That's still got the color of a C13 chord, but I'm only playing 3 notes, not 7 notes. You know, and I'm just getting the essential ones. I'm actually getting the ones that are easiest to play on the guitar. As long as I've got that 13 in there, which really stands out. So that's how we end up getting around playing these really complicated chords in terms of number of notes, as we just get the essential notes out of it. So now here's how it all works. If I were to tell you, play a C minor 7 flat 5, you might hear that and go, God, that sounds really complicated. But if you think about it, wait, C minor 7 flat 5, we can do this. We can work this formula out. So first let's do the C minor 7. Well, you know how to do that now, right? We've talked about it. It's just a minor chord with the flatted 7. And I showed you just lift your pinky, right? You find like a C minor chord and lift your pinky. So in this case, we're going to play it like this. There's your C minor 7. So now we just need to do the flat 5. So to flat that 5, we just take our 5 and we go down a half step. Now that's very uncomfortable the way that I'm doing that. So you just reposition your fingers and you go, oh, it's this chord. Okay, cool. So that's easy to play. But that's how I can work it out, by just knowing those basics. You need to know your major chords and your minor chords and how to play those in different spots with triads. And then from there you get into your major 7 versus dominant 7 and understand that whole categorization. And then after that you get into extensions. And once you can understand that, you could play all of these things. So when you see something like a sharp 9 or a flat 5, you know what that means now. You can find the 9 and you can sharp it, or if you can find the 5 and flat it. Now it's going to take a little bit of investigative work. This isn't something you're expected to just look at a chord chart and be able to just do right out of the gate. I can't do that. Most people can't do that. But I can sit down and I can look at it and I can study it. You know, I get out my little detective hat and I look at it and I think about it, and I think about, okay, what is a major chord, what is the minor chord, what is the flatted 5, and I can find, if this fingering doesn't work, I'd start in another position, but I can keep messing around with it until I find a chord voicing that works for my fingers. And if I have to eliminate notes out of the chord, that's okay. There's all the jazz guys do that. Everybody does that, especially if you've got a band. If you've got a bass player playing and a piano player, you don't have to cover all the notes. They're covering stuff for you, so you can eliminate notes. And even if you're playing by yourself, the same is true. Nobody's going to even notice. All right, so let's do a quick summary of what we've learned. We've talked about how a chord is built. We started with a major scale. It's the 1, the 3, and the 5 out of the major scale. That's how your major chord is built. Then we got to the minor chord, which was you have your 1, your 3, your 5, but you flat the 3rd. That's all a minor chord is, a minor triad. And then we went beyond triads. We went into playing a major 7 chord. So we had the 1, 3, 5, and the 7. And then we talked about a dominant 7, which is a 1, 3, 5, flat 7. We talked about a minor 7 chord, which is a 1, flat 3, 5, flat 7. This is hard for me to regurgitate off the top of my head. But those are the big buckets. And then after that, we got into extensions and how we can add extensions beyond the 7. We only have 3. We can go up to the 9, the 11, and the 13. But that should give you a good understanding of how chords are built and how they work and how you can play them. And it's not that intimidating now. I hope it's not. So go through your practice materials for this unit and make sure you understand how to play some of your triads in different spots. You don't have to get it all, but that's what this theory course is about. It's just to introduce you to these ideas so that you have all that background information and you can follow along.